like spooky, because we followed so many high energy acts of color,
Sure.
in Boston.
Yes.
At the Boston Comedy Club. Because those guys were great, because they would be coming up with like, I never understood what they were talking about.
Don't forget where you are. Let me put a bookmark here. The audience would filter in. It was like a bus station.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, like Jason Steinberg and like Timothy Oliphant from Deadwood used to work the door.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And like people like that, after a while, you go, wow, it's an empty room. Fuck it. I'll just start letting people in for free. At least when I work, there's a crowd. So they just started letting groups of people that would walk the streets of Manhattan, like groups of 5 and 8, like Latinos, like, you guys want to see a comedy? You're like, how much is it? Like, I'll tell you what, just go on and just sit down. And so you'd be in front of like 40 people, 30 of which didn't pay.
Yeah.
And they would just sit there like, this motherfucker's corny.
That was the best part. Because that's where I got like 2 of my best heckles ever. And I'll tell you, one was like there was German tourists there. And this was like almost basically right after the war. Probably 15 years ago. So the Holocaust was still fresh and so the guy, I go to the guy, he's from Germany and I'm whatever. And he goes, oh man, I want to put you in an oven. But it wasn't said like, in like a funny way because he's German. There's no funny over there. So it was like, that was like a great heckle. Now I look back at it and I give him like, that was balls for him to say that. And then the other one was like during an urban show. All these black women were sitting up front and like enjoying everybody. Then I get up there whiting it up, Mr. Whitey, and they turn their seats around on me like,
no.
It's like,
He think and you heard.
And that's why I was like, oh man, these people are tough.
You heard. He think he's cute.
And then that was also the club where you thought you were going to get shot.
You don't want to get it twisted.
That was the club where did you always feel like like you were going to get like something horrible was going to happen, but the chance of being shot were like also in the mix because you'd be like, did you hear what happened? There was somebody pulled out a gun and shot, like this was like before Tupac and all the other gangster wars. So
when you walk down the side streets in the downtown of wherever town you're listening to this in, and like there's that element where you go, all right, let me cross the street. And I'm not saying blacks or minorities, like there's just sketchy fucking people roaming the earth.
Yeah.
They always wound up in this room where we did comedy.
Yes.
And don't you think that made us better comics? Because we had to at least fake like we didn't give a shit, and we had to fake.
It was frightening.
We had to fake that we were not afraid of the enormous fucking Samoan covered in tattoos going, how about I come up there and fuck you up? Yeah. You're like, why don't you sit down, pineapple? Like it was like you're gonna die here, so you might as well get a laugh on your way out.
Yeah, that was a definite you're hoping that at least you went down like a Viking funeral. There's no way you're gonna kill. Like they'll be like, get back up. That was also the first place where I would see guys go like, I gotta go. And like you're the next white guy, you're going to disappoint them.
Chappelle would do it.
I don't know who would do it, but somebody
I'll tell you right now.
I gotta go, and then they'd be like, no.
Yeah, Chappelle did that shit so much, and it made me nuts because I'd go on after Chappelle. There's some guys you can. I think you're easy to follow.
Great.
I'm easy to follow because we leave the energy up there.
Yeah,
But there's other guys like when they get off stage, they take that entire room out the fucking door with them. And
I'm a clean wipe. Like ready for the next shooter. Go ahead.
That's good. Chappelle was a guy that would go, and Tony Woods would do it a lot.
Tony was good at that.
You get the red light. If you're listening, if you're not familiar with it, we'll get a light letting us know time-wise, you got to start wrapping this shit up. You got to get off stage. So in the clubs in the cities, everyone's doing about 20 minutes. You get like a 15-minute light or whatever, or an 8-minute light if you're doing 10 minutes. On the road, you'll get a 45-minute light, 40-minute light. But Chappelle would go, well, they're giving me the light. I noticed that the black guy gets the light a little sooner than the white guy gets the light. And they're like, yeah, that's fucked up, man. He'd be like, well, but they're telling me that I have to go. And the crowd's like, no, don't go. And he goes, I have to go because other people got to come up and tell their stories. But I don't want to go, but I do have the light. And then by the time you get up there, they're like, you're the fucking reason Chappelle had to leave.
Yeah. It made it a little harder for you. But that's...
the fatal flaw of Chappelle's act was he would go to the white guy voice, which seems to be, like a home run stroke for black comics. But with Chappelle, because he was just like a great kid when he came in. He was like 16 from D.C.
Yes.
Super smart. But he would go to the white guy voice on punchlines because he was influenced by white... He would go like... You know why they don't take black people hostage? Because we're bad bargaining chips. He would say it exactly white. And then by the time he'd go to the white voice, you're like, well, no, you can't make fun of us for sounding white because you just did 4 fucking puns. My friend Neil was in the car, and he was like, Dave, the police are behind us. I'm like, well, that's the same voice you did for Bad Bargaining Chips. Pick a lane, dude. So Dave Attell does not like Dave.
Rant.
You do not like. I don't know why you and Chappelle never got along.
No, it's fucking. That's fucking. No, I can tell you one thing. There's few people that you get to see from at the start of their career that you're like, oh my god, this guy is like a game changer. He's like amazing.
I'm watching a meteor.
Yeah, I'm watching like what comedy should be, will always be, like the purest form of it, and that's Chappelle. And
but Chappelle used to tell these great stories about like his brother putting him in the dryer when he was a kid.
Or going through the neighborhood and the baby looks at him. You know,
yeah, but it almost
seemed
like
a bad neighborhood when the baby stops.
What? It almost seemed like the more Chappelle was around, the more his act changed. It came away from what made him the meteor. Does that make sense?
I don't know. I think that the story's not fully written on what he's going to do, and he's an amazing act, and
he's uninsurable. That you can't insure him for a movie.
Well, that sucks that he'll never be in Good Burger 9 or whatever the fuck,
Proper.
But I mean, as a stand-up, you can't get much better than what he does, and
I love Dave Chappelle's stand-up. He's a guy like you're right. When you first saw Dave Chappelle, it was like watching a meteor take off. Hedberg was one of those guys. Carlin somehow, to me, was a guy that was a 60-year Haley's Comet. Like he never stopped.
Really?
To me, like to do an hour every other year.
Yeah, that I agree with.
And even the specials where you go, that really wasn't that good. There's always like 11 minutes of that hour that are game changing.
That's true.
Minutes, like talking about how the planet will shake us off like a case of fleas.
That's true.
And he lists everything. Like he almost had like OCD with the words he would put into his essays that he called his act.
Well, the cool thing about him is that like. I wish he was around now because like this self-editing, political correctness, judging, this like never-ending loop of like judgmentalism. I wonder what he would say about that because he used to take on religion, government, but like taking on cyberbullying. I'd love to hear what his thoughts on that kind of shit would be, because really he was the voice of the little man, but now the little man is like attacking itself.
They're the biggest bullies.
Yeah, so, it would be cool to hear what he has to say about that shit. But another guy who, like, I used to listen to his records and I would be like, his silly stuff in the beginning was like, it would make me laugh like it would be like Halloween candy. Like, I'd have to hear it and I'd sneak back up and hear it again and whatever. And then, like, as I grew up in comedy, I realized, like, what the guy was doing and how talented he was at doing it. And then, like, every comic, you fall in love with his, like, sad story of, like, he was fired in Vegas. He said, fuck you, he lit a clown's dick on fire and said, never again. You're like, I want to be that guy,
If there was a Noah's Ark and you were in charge of putting comics on it, like the world ends, and you, like when we go to whatever the next place is.
How many weigh-ins do I get?
As many as anyone but Kim.
Okay. What happened to Kim? Where is she?
Yeah, I don't know. Keeping it real. So, am I right, ladies? Come on, back me up now. Round of applause for these good-looking men in this audience.
If you and I are one comment away from our own white power fucking hour on public access.
I think we're there.
Good morning, Boise, Idaho. The war continues.
Yes, and for everybody out on Bear Lake.
I hear there's a new burrito place on the edge of town.
Meet you there.
I'm not going there.
Meet you there. You know when. If like the apocalypse is coming and we get to start over, you're in charge of what comics? Let's say a list of 5, 6. You can make it up. Like what comics to you, not to society,
right?
Because everyone's going to say Lenny Bruce, everyone's going to say Woody Allen. To you personally, to what moved you? Which comics do you go? All right, I'm in charge of which comics get put on this ship to get put into this parallel land. are the most important ones. Are the most important Merlin.
I don't know what pothead wrote this hypothetical. Okay.
Look, let's say you're on Land of the Lost.
Okay.
And Chaka has to rearrange the stones.
We didn't even get into that. That's our other thing. The slee stack.
And Enoch, the good slee stack with the red vest, decides.
I used to love that show, and you ruined it for me because I would like run home and watch it. I know you were like a sports guy. You're too busy getting blown after a game somewhere. I'd be like, oh, Land of the Lost is coming on. Let's go home and like laugh at it. But I was like really into it.
I was totally into
Honey,
it.
watch out.
Ooh, that's Grumpy. And he's in an argument with Alice.
Enoch is talking. Shh.
Enoch.
My mom would come in with a peanut butter sandwich. Another peanut butter sandwich, you fat piece of shit. It's like, shh. Enoch is saying something about the environment.
Enoch's the good slee stack.
Let me move a couple of crystals around and change things.
Marshall, Will, and Holly.
No, but I don't know what.
Let's say Chaka moves Chaka Tagumanda.
Yeah, that was
I always thought that
a horrible remake.
I always thought that was it was pretty bad. I always thought that was Clint Howard as a kid. I'm not kidding. I swear to God.
Clint Howard on a bender.
And my wife told me when she was a kid, she thought it was Scott Hamilton. They would just dress up like a fucking chimp. Side gigs.
That was.
Let me rephrase the question.
Go ahead.
You have to pick 5 comics to live forever because of how important they were to you. Who do you like? Who were your guys?
Well, the ones who like definitely showed me how to do comedy were like Colin Quinn, of course, Alan Havey. I said.
Havey's that's an interesting choice.
No, Havey was the one who showed me, like, watching him, like...
Tell me why.
You know, like, at the Comedy Cellar years back, it was a rough rock and roll kind of, like, not a rock and roll, but like a rough and tumble kind of place. And, like, when Havey would go up there, like, he definitely was, like, cool, and, like, he definitely controlled the crowd. Yes. And Colin also was, like, another guy where, like, he just, like, was able to work a situation, and, like, you know, everybody wanted to be him, you know, and, like, just, like... honestly, those two guys had a big effect on me. But
am I right? Let me just stay on Havey real quick. Am I correct in, because this is what appeals to me about Havey, is he was one of the first guys that I watched get the audience completely on his time.
Yeah, that's true. I know what you're saying.
Like when everybody's like, yeah, and we're going to do it tonight. Am I right? You guys are fucking crazy. And then Havey would get up and it was like, you know, the Playboy Club. It was like a jazz after hours. Like he would just talk quietly, look around, hands in the pocket, and start telling something really slow and laconic. And somehow everyone was like, you hear a pin drop.
Yeah, because they were like, this dude knows what he's talking about. And he used to say the thing like, here we are in the Village. It's like 2:30 in the morning. Everything else is closed. There's nobody cooler than us. Like, he totally got the crowd on his side in like one moment. Like, it's just like, there's nothing else open in America right now. We're the coolest people on earth, you know?
What is it about Quinn? Because I was talking to Quinn on the podcast, and I said...
On this podcast?
Yeah.
Okay.
What I said, for me, what it is with Quinn was he doesn't have the rhythm, the pattern, the beat, beat, beat joke, ba-da-da-da-da-da. Like his rhyme scheme of like his poetry, of his act, he's the only one, and Hedberg's like that too. Mm-hmm. He's the only guy. And audiences, like when you watch a sitcom, something could be dog shit unfunny, but the rhythm is there, and they'll pause, and people will laugh and applaud because that's what a joke feels like.
He's not like that at all. You're
and
right.
He said to me, "You're right. My act is always." This is one of my favorite quotes I've ever heard. A guy say a self-awareness quote. He goes, "My act's always been a bit of a dog whistle." It's just for comics, like people that are really wired, realizing that he was doing something completely different. And the problem is the audiences don't really enjoy it as much as you and I do.
Yeah, he's definitely, you have to like appreciate what he does, but he knows how to do all of those, like, cause like whenever he does like, you know, years back when he would do like sets and I would see him do like, kind of like the impression of a comic and he would like do a throwaway joke that you wish you had. It'd be like, you know, the jizz, you know, congeals in the belly button. And then, you know, like he was never a dirty
the kind
act.
of guy who's always got a little bit of shaving cream in the corner of his ear. You know?
Plus he was like a fucking rough and tumble guy from Brooklyn who was also like super smart and like could box. And like, you're like, this is like, I wish I was this guy, you know, fucking chicks dig him and every guy he's just so personable and like fun. But he was another guy who was great at like taking crowd work to a different level of like, he'd see like a Asian guy. It was like in the crowd. You know, this is like such a cool thing because he'd be like, "Oh, a couple of Bangkok traders are in," and then he would like ramble off like 5 Wall Street terms, and I'd be like, "Wow!" Like I kind of know what he's talking about, but I would look at the guy and like hear his voice, and it was like perfect. And the guy was laughing too because either he nailed him,
or he
that's
nails
what he was.
the Bangkok trading business in Bangkok, and he would name
it's oh, we're in town for a couple of blah blah blah,
and then you fly, and he would name the actual airport in Bangkok. And then by the time you're back to route at Patataran Airport,
when he did the Afghan election joke, do you remember that?
No.
Where you go I don't know who I like, and then we'd ramble off 5 really scary Arab names, Abama Dama Damata has a great idea about but you can't knock, Tabatuba Tabata's ideas. He knew their policies.
Yeah.
And they're warrior tribal chieftain, fucking beheaders. But it was
he's trying to take
so
power,
smart.
He's trying to take power back from the mullahs, give it back to the people, tribe by tribe.
He's just.
Let me put a bookmark here. The audience would filter in. It was like a bus station.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, Jason Steinberg and Timothy Oliphant from Deadwood used to work the door.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And people like that, after a while, you go, wow, it's an empty room. Fuck it. I'll just start letting people in for free.
Yeah.
And they would just sit there this motherfucker's corny.
That was the best part. Because that's where I got 2 of my best heckles ever. And I'll tell you, one was there was German tourists there. And this was almost basically right after the war. Probably 15 years ago. So the Holocaust was still fresh and so the guy, I go to the guy, he's from Germany and I'm whatever. And he goes, oh man, I want to put you in an oven. But it wasn't said in a funny way because he's German. There's no funny over there. So it was whoa, that was a great heckle. Now I look back at it and I give him that was balls for him to see.
At least when I work, there's a crowd. So they just started letting groups of people that would walk the streets of Manhattan, groups of 5 and 8, Latinos, you guys want to see a comedy? How much is it? I'll tell you what, just go on and just sit down. And so you'd be in front of 40 people, 30 of which didn't pay.
Spooky. Because we followed so many high energy, acts of color,
Sure.
in Boston.
Yes.
At the Boston Comedy Club. Because those guys were great because, they would be coming up with I never understood what they were talking about.
Don't forget where you are.